Our first story takes place in the rugged mountains of the Pacific Northwest. Jake Weber, a seasoned hiker, and his friends decided to tackle a challenging trail known for its breathtaking views and treacherous paths. It was a crisp autumn day when they set out, unaware of the supernatural horror they would soon encounter. As the group ascended, the weather began to change. Dark clouds rolled in and a dense fog enveloped the mountain. Jake and his friends decided to set up camp for the night, hoping the fog would lift by morning. They built a fire, shared stories, and played some of their favorite songs by Linkin Park to pass the time. Around midnight, strange noises echoed through the fog. It sounded like someone was walking around their campsite. Jake, thinking it might be a lost hiker, called out but received no response. The noises continued, growing louder and more erratic. The group huddled closer to the fire, trying to shake off their growing unease. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the fog. It was a man, dressed in old hiking gear, his face gaunt and eyes hollow. He stood at the edge of their campsite, staring at them with an unsettling intensity. One of Jake's friends, Sam, approached the man to offer help, but the figure vanished into the fog without a word. The group was shaken, but decided to stay put until morning. However, the night took a darker turn. The figure reappeared, this time closer to the fire. He seemed to be whispering something, but his words were indistinguishable. The temperature dropped and the fire flickered, casting eerie shadows on the group's faces. Jake and his friends tried to ignore the phantom hiker, but he kept appearing and disappearing, each time closer and more menacing. The whispers grew louder, turning into screams that echoed through the mountains. The group's fear turned to panic as they realized they were being haunted by a malevolent spirit. Desperate to escape, they packed up their gear and started down the mountain in the dark. The phantom hiker followed, his presence growing stronger with each step. The fog thickened, making it nearly impossible to see. Jake felt a cold hand grip his shoulder, and he turned to see the ghostly face inches from his own. "You shouldn't be here," it hissed. The group broke into a run, but the phantom hiker kept pace, his screams filling the night. One by one, Jake's friends stumbled and fell, disappearing into the fog. Jake was the last one standing, his heart pounding with terror. The ghostly figure lunged at him, and everything went black. The next morning, rescuers found Jake alone on the mountain, his friends missing without a trace. Jake was in a state of shock, unable to explain what had happened. Our second story takes us to the Appalachian Mountains, where a group of friends, including Sam and Colby, decided to hike a trail rumored to be cursed. The trail had a dark history, with numerous disappearances and strange occurrences reported over the years. Despite the warnings, the group was eager for an adventure and dismissed the tales as mere legends. The hike began uneventfully, with the group enjoying the beautiful scenery and the camaraderie. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they noticed strange symbols carved into the trees. The atmosphere grew heavy, and an unsettling feeling washed over them. As night fell, the group set up camp near an old abandoned cabin. The cabin had an eerie aura, but they decided it would provide better shelter than their tents. They lit a fire, shared ghost stories, and listened to some horror podcasts to set the mood. Jake Weber played a particularly chilling episode about unsolved mysteries, which only added to their growing unease. Around midnight, they heard strange noises coming from the cabin. It sounded like footsteps and faint whispers. Sam and Colby decided to investigate, armed with flashlights and a sense of bravado. As they entered the cabin, the temperature dropped and the air grew thick with an oppressive presence. The flashlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The whispers grew louder, forming words that sent chills down their spines. "Leave this place," the voices hissed. Sam and Colby felt a cold wind blow through the cabin, extinguishing their flashlights. In the darkness, they saw a figure standing in the corner. It was a woman, her face twisted in agony and her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. She stepped forward, her movements jerky and unnatural. "You should have listened," she whispered. Sam and Colby stumbled back, desperate to escape. The figure lunged at them, her screams echoing through the cabin. They ran outside, yelling for their friends to leave immediately. The group packed up in a panic and fled down the trail, the woman's screams following them. As they ran, the forest seemed to close in around them. The trees twisted and warped, creating an impenetrable maze. The whispers grew louder, and shadowy figures appeared among the trees, their eyes glowing with malice. The friends became separated, each one lost in the cursed forest. Colby tripped over a root and fell, the shadowy figures closing in. He felt cold hands gripping him, pulling him into the darkness. Sam, hearing his friend's screams, tried to find him, but was confronted by the ghostly woman. Her eyes burned with anger as she whispered, "You cannot escape." Desperate, Sam ran blindly through the forest, his heart pounding with fear. He stumbled upon a clearing and saw the trailhead in the distance. He made a final sprint for freedom, the whispers and screams echoing behind him. He reached his car and drove away, not daring to look back. Sam reported the incident to the authorities, but no trace of his friends was ever found. Our third story takes place in the Rocky Mountains, where a group of college friends decided to explore a series of caves known for their breathtaking beauty and hidden dangers. Among the group was Jake, an avid spelunker, who had always been fascinated by the underground world. The hike to the caves was challenging, but the group was excited for the adventure. As they reached the entrance, they were struck by the beauty of the rock formations and the eerie silence that surrounded them. They set up camp outside the cave, planning to explore it the next morning. That night, as they sat around the campfire, they heard strange noises coming from the cave. It sounded like whispers and distant screams. Jake, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension, suggested they explore the cave right away. The group agreed, and they ventured into the darkness armed with flashlights and climbing gear. The cave was vast and labyrinthine, with narrow passages and hidden chambers. The air was cold and damp, and the echoes of their footsteps created an unsettling atmosphere. As they ventured deeper, they noticed strange symbols carved into the walls, similar to those in the cursed trail. Suddenly, one of Jake's friends, Emily, screamed. She had seen a shadowy figure darting through the darkness. The group huddled together, their flashlights casting eerie beams of light on the cave walls. The whispers grew louder, forming words that sent chills down their spines. "Leave this place!" the voices hissed. Jake, determined to uncover the mystery, led the group further into the cave. They reached a large chamber with a natural rock formation that resembled an altar. On the altar lay an old, tattered book. Jake opened it, revealing pages filled with dark incantations and illustrations of demonic entities. As Jake read aloud from the book, The temperature in the cave plummeted. The shadows grew darker, and a menacing presence filled the chamber. The whispers turned into guttural growls, and the ground trembled. Suddenly, a demonic figure materialized before them, its eyes burning with malevolence. The demon roared, and the group's flashlights flickered and died. In the darkness, they felt cold hands gripping them, pulling them towards the altar. The demon's voice echoed through the chamber. "You have awakened me, and now you must pay." Panic set in as the friends struggled to escape. Jake tried to close the book, but the demon's power was too strong. The friends were thrown against the walls, their screams echoing through the cave. One by one, they fell victim to the demon's wrath. Jake, the last one standing, felt the demon's cold breath on his neck. "You should not have come here," it whispered. The demon's claws pierced his skin, and everything went black. The next morning, rescuers found the group outside the cave, unconscious and covered in strange markings. Jake and his friends were taken to the hospital, but they could not recall what had happened. The cave was sealed off, and the book was never found. Jake's story became a legend among spelunkers, a warning about the danger